Hey, welcome to Film Fanatics. My name is Dan.
My name is Justin.
And I'm Joe.
In keeping with the new tradition of having our old classics in a monthly theme, Justin had an idea for Spring Cleaning Month for April, which basically takes our movies that we've referenced a bunch on this show but have never actually reviewed for the program. And so we all brought one to the table, and we also had a listener's choice of Braveheart, which is an interesting one because we would have gotten to that eventually on the Oscar A to Z in probably 6 months to a year if we had continued with that theme. So we decided to tackle that one, but we'll do that one last. First up is something that we actually mentioned on the 2-year anniversary show for the first time, and that was explaining what perditioning is. And so Justin brought us Road to Perdition. And for those that missed, maybe you explain it again.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Please
Okay.
do.
No.
The story.
There's a whole spiel. Michael Sullivan Jr., played by Tyler Hoechlin, always believed his father, played by Tom Hanks, was an honest, hardworking man for John Rooney, played by the late great Paul Newman. But that statement's only partially true. Though when sneaking out to discover the truth leads to deadly consequences in regards to his father's occupation. Both Michael and his father go on the run as every bond their family had is put to the test. Jude Law, Daniel Craig, and several other great actors also star.
Now, Justin's just making all the people great now.
So many greats.
Great Paul Newman,
Well, I feel like
the list can't keep growing here.
I feel like great Stanley Tucci is borderline applicable. I mean, Burlesque.
I think we'd all agree with that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
But to me, Jude Law is always
Jude
Dom
Law
Hemingway.
is Dom Hemingway. I would say not the great.
So, as Dan mentioned, we did talk about Road to Perdition for the 2-year anniversary. There's been a reoccurring theme with perdition as a term being used for movies that were often talked about when they came out and then sort of fell by the wayside. And honestly, for this month, there were a lot of different picks. Dan mentioned several times that I probably could have easily run Hannah. But
Hannah, Cinderella Man.
Lest we forget Cinderella Man. But there's no shortage, point being. But honestly, when we devoted a third of an episode to it, we got to do it. And this is a movie I kind of have a love-hate relationship with.
Oh.
But as I get older, the more I can appreciate Mendez's directing with it. I think he has a very good sense of how to convey a really good shot and bring it to life. The problem with Road to Perdition for me was he handles the material in a very theatrical, stage-like kind of way. Like, there's one scene that's really, really well shot, probably about a third of the way into the movie that I do really like, but the execution feels like it'd be far better equipped for stage production, which is when Tom Hanks' son is witnessing him kill a man, and there's this like heavy lighting. You can see like the dust in the air. It's like, okay, I get it. Road to Perdition, the stage production, and it's not necessarily bad. It just feels out of place for a feature-length movie. The acting is for the most part solid. Hanks, I appreciate the effort, but I also feel like he kind of was overstepping his boundaries in terms of going against his own comfort zone for the role. And I think Dan probably said it best roughly 2/3 into the movie. His inflection for getting angry at one point is probably like one octave lower than Woody in Toy Story. Saying,
it was. I wanted him to scream that he's not a toy. Or that he is a toy, yeah.
You are a child plaything, which could have worked for the movie at some point. Like, you are nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it was the same read.
Oh, definitely. But I mean, it's always been a story I liked. Road to Perdition is probably in my top 5 favorite graphic novels of all time, and it's, for the most part, faithful to the source material. Takes a couple liberties here and there, but I can appreciate that when it's done well. And this is definitely along those lines. But overall, I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's amazing, but I can appreciate it. I leave Road to Perdition with a B.
All right, Joe?
Well, of course, since it's a gangster movie, Justin really brought this for me.
Oh, clearly.
No,
You see right through me, Joe.
No, I saw this a long time ago, and I remember being blown away by it when I was much younger. Watching it again, I feel like it's a very good-looking movie for sure. I mean, in terms
Absolutely.
of the style, just the shots, the editing, the lighting, it looks so good. It's one of the crispest gangster movies I've ever seen. If that's a uniqueness.
It's interesting. I would agree with that.
And it does follow the graphic novel in terms of trying to mimic a lot of the panels, which I always love when they try to do that on film. So that's pretty cool. Another thing, though, that I remembered about the movie really liking was Jude Law's villain is like one of the creepiest villains ever.
Easily.
But there's really not that much of him in the movie. And it kind of brings me to this point where I felt like there's a lot of great build-up for the plot, for sure. And
Definitely.
the most interesting dynamic is between the father and the son, which I think is pretty solid, and I think it wraps up well. But once they kind of go on the road to perdition, so to speak, it feels like it gets a little more episodic and choppy. Like
In bits, yeah.
I wish they would have kind of taken a little more time to really get the feel and the establishment between the characters a little more. Like it needs to slow down a bit because it feels like, oh, it ended and, well, that's the end of the story. So, I mean, I can't say that it's, bad or anything. I think it's pretty well directed. I think it's interesting you bring up that Tom Hanks might be a little out of his comfort zone. I think he's good because he's Tom Hanks, but...
Well, he's definitely good, but...
Is it like his best performance? Was it the best role for him? I don't know. I feel like there's probably a dozen other people you might have been able to cast for it better.
Yeah.
But,
No, when I say out of his comfort zone, I'm meaning like he does an adequate job. It's satisfactory, but I wouldn't say he's rising to the occasion.
Oh, no, I agree with you. But I felt like, for playing a reserved, gangster guy with the heart of gold, he does a pretty good job. But, he's still, beneath it, it's Tom Hanks. And you are right, the Woody thing is pretty obvious in a couple scenes. Overall, though, I think it's a good-looking movie. I think it's pretty solid, but it's not quite as good as I remember it. I'd leave it with a B+.
Okay. Oh, so the first time you saw it, really, really loved it.
It was probably like an A the first time. I thought it was, amazing.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good, but I agree that Hanks... I can't say he's bad. I don't know if the man's ever given a bad performance. But this is definitely of the more middle-tier Hanks performance, I think. You not just
Probably
got
about
the
right.
Woody thing, but I don't think...
He's a little sleepy.
I mean, I love the father-son storyline the most, like you said, Joe. But I think the parts where he is the best is when he's, with Newman or when he's with Law.
Or he's mowing people down.
Yeah, I mean, I like the murdering Hanks a bit, but I don't know that it's, one of the top-tier performances. I also think Newman is not quite up to his A game here. I mean, is this his last live-action role?
It's pretty close, right?
I would say if it's not his last, it's fairly close, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's up there.
I think you could kind of tell that he was, a little bit...
Past his prime.
Yeah, I didn't kind of want to be cruel and say that, but yeah, kind of. So, the performances I don't think is where this movie shines. I think it's the story and, like you mentioned, Joe, the visuals,
Presentation.
the presentation. And that is an interesting point you made about the more light gangster looking movie, because gangster movies are so dark always.
To mimic the themes, obviously.
Sure. Oh, yeah,
but I thought we all picked it up, that we felt that this director was really trying to emulate Spielberg, and you can tell.
Yes, you can. I actually thought it was a Spielberg movie, probably till we watched it. I mean, for the longest time I thought it was. Especially because you have that Spielberg-Hanks collabo history. But
if you didn't know, you'd believe it. If
I would believe it in a
directed.
second, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I like Mendes a lot. This is Sam
yeah.
Mendes, right?
Yeah.
We've seen him do many things. He usually, does a solid job. I'm actually with Joe. I give it a B+.
All right.
So, yet another case of Justin bringing a movie and he turns out to be the lowest on it. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good.
It's definitely good. But,
Oh yeah, that was never a question.
I just had it in my mind for some reason as like a masterpiece, and I might have overrated it a bit in my head.
Yeah, it certainly isn't quite up to that level.
No.
No, I mean from some aspects from a technical standpoint, I think are very good. The downplaying of the violence, I think, was a big thing for me. Like the graphic novel's heavy.
Yeah.
And I keep going back and forth as to whether or not that sort of soiled my my interpretation of it.
Well, it's like Dan said, it's kind of the light gangster movie.
It is.
Yeah.
But I think that's okay.
Like it's trying to emulate the 20s and 30s gangster movies, I guess. Being a little cleaner.
Well, what was the
Wasn't
Angels?
necessarily-
Angels with the dirty
I
faces.
was going to say, that was definitely not a clean gangster movie.
I think he means more 40s and 50s.
Maybe 40s,
Yeah.
50s, before there was
after the Hayes Code.
MPA.
Yeah.
That's true. But yeah, romanticized.
Yeah.
Kind of like
Yes.
a love letter to that.
I would agree.
Sort
I
of
mean,
ish.
if you put something like this next to Goodfellas or something,
Yeah.
or Untouchables, obviously this is because it's so focused, I think, on the father-son relationship.
Absolutely.
You get more of a lighter take on it, I guess. Well, Joe, let's hear from you now on Hero, your pick.
All right, that's going to be the Jet Li martial arts fest.
No,
that
no,
you guys are-
nope.
Yeah.
This is what whenever I say
It had
this,
to
it's
be.
the first thing everyone thinks about.
Hoffman and The Great.
That's true. Well, I guess a
You
little.
could have picked many movies.
Yeah, I'm kind of the biggest offender of movies I just name dropped that I haven't brought.
And we're doing Joe Movie Month coming up.
Because they got
At
to
some point.
get more out of the way. So yeah, this was probably up. This and Renaissance Man are the big offenders, but yeah, it's one of those things where it wouldn't matter what the podcast is. Like sometimes it would be related thematically, and sometimes it's like oh, these are great movies. And by the way, Hero's a great movie. Like just I don't even know.
Well, like anytime Owen Wilson's mentioned, you talk
like-
about Minus
like-
Man,
like, the great
regardless of context.
like like the great. I've seen great
To
roles.
be fair,
Hoffman's
we have
done.
provoked him on that a couple times, but
Yes,
I don't think so.
Owen Wilson's done many great roles.
We've just
Like Minus Man.
like Minus Man Joe there.
Well, it's just never mind. That's a whole nother issue. But
Yes.
anyway, Hero is the '92 American. I guess we decided it's a comedy / drama.
Yeah.
I think it's leaning a little more on the drama personally.
Agreed.
Directed by Stephen Frears, and it was written by David Webb Peoples. So I think that's how you say his name, Peoples. But the film stars the great not the great Dustin Hoffman, who is great, but he's not the great. Gina Davis, the great Andy Garcia, Joan Cusack, and interestingly enough, an uncredited Chevy Chase, which
Yeah, I
surprised
don't
me.
know why
That's
he
bizarre.
took his name off of
Because
that.
I remembered he was in it because I was rewatching the trailer even before I picked it again, and I'm like, oh yeah, Chevy Chase is funny in this movie. No, not even a credit.
No.
Like that was strange for marketing. But the plot of it is basically a not so nice guy, kind of this crook who's down on his luck and he's about ready to go to prison. Bernie LaPlante, played by Dustin Hoffman, he's getting his affairs in order. Nothing goes right for this guy, and then all of a sudden he comes across a plane crash in which he rescues all the passengers, including Gina Davis's character, who is a reporter. But through all the smoke and fog, he's missed. Nobody knows who he is. Until, apparently, to goad him, they offer a reward, the angel of the flight. And who would go and find him but a bum that he met, played by the great Andy Garcia, who takes credit for it. And there's just a lot of conflict as Bernie tries to claim his reward for doing a great thing, even though nobody could possibly believe that he is capable of anything heroic. I guess this movie I mentioned before because I really do like it a lot. I think that there's something about the simplicity of the story that I think speaks to the good nature of people in general. I mean, they certainly name drop the theme of what it means to be a hero in the movie many times if you
Indeed.
didn't get it. So I guess I like that concept, and there are some really great performances in the movie. And one thing I kind of like about it too is that there is a little bit of satire about the media as well. They kind of play in
Oh,
there
yeah.
and playing up
One of
tragedy,
my favorite parts.
misconceptions about it, which I think works really well, and I think it's quite telling even today. There's some elements of corniness that I found out recently upon doing a little research about it, that the movie was kind of an homage to older films of the time, like 30s and 40s, misplaced identity, that sort
I
of
think it
stuff.
shows.
Very much so, and it reminded me
Capra-esque in a way.
kind of like Mr. Smith Goes to Washington kind of thing, like overblown ideas and whatnot, but those great ideals of humanity. So it's kind of like this love song to old Hollywood, which I kind of like, and I really like the characters, and I think Bernie LaPlante is, honestly a really great guy, and I think he challenges the idea of the perception of the hero, and I think Hoffman does a great job with him. Garcia is also lovable as well. It's difficult not to like Garcia, as we mentioned, and Gina Davis does pretty good as well. So it's a good movie. I think that there are some things I wish they would have done a little more. Like you feel like the most interesting things are when, like for instance, Garcia's character and Hoffman's character are interacting, and towards the end there,
The scene they have at the end together is
like-
I would say the best in the film.
I agree, and I think that's like the high point. And I kind of wish we had a little more of that to flesh things out.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, if they had picked out or maybe played up the satire a little bit more, I think that it would have been perfect. It's not a perfect movie, but I think there's something about it that really speaks to me and who we are as people and the idea of a hero, which I really do like. I think it's kind of an unsung movie that nobody talks about, that I wish people talked about more, and I'd leave it with an A-.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, this is one that my parents talked about when it was out. I hadn't seen it until maybe 5 or 6 years after it had come out. I was home for like a Christmas or something, and they were like, oh, you should watch this movie. You'd enjoy it. And I think it is sort of that Capra-esque quality that they found so appealing about it.
Oh, yeah.
Not to mention my dad is a huge Gina Davis fan.
Oh, really?
A big crush on her.
Oh, okay.
Really.
Cutthroat Island?
Well, I don't know about that one so much, but more,
Everyone
more
makes
the
mistakes, Joe.
It's okay.
Beetlejuice era, and Accidental Tourist, we know they're big fans of.
Strangely.
Well, Gina Davis.
So much feet.
But I do think that the satire portion of the film is great.
I think it's hilarious.
The Chevy Chase stuff and the news angle and the interplay between Hoffman and pretty much everyone in the film. Hoffman and his son, Hoffman and Garcia, Hoffman and Gina Davis. One of his best roles for this time period.
Well, I mean, he gets to really play off everybody so differently, and since
He does.
the perception of the character is different for each person, each conversation is very different.
Right.
And you can see so much range of Hoffman. You see him as lovable, you see him as mean, you see him as
the
mysterious.
cad.
The cad.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I think a great range for him. He's unsung in this role, for sure.
He is. And I do think unsung is a great word for this movie as a whole.
It annoys me.
It's one that, I mean, it hasn't been perditioned because nobody even talked about it the first time.
People liked it, but nobody.
It was a minor hit at the box office at best.
And then one of those movies.
It wasn't one that really ever sort of caught a cult following, and I think it's a shame.
So basically, it fell almost immediately into obscurity.
Yeah, I mean, it was
your
it
average movie,
did okay at the box office, but it wasn't a big hit. It certainly wasn't a flop.
Didn't win the awards,
but it sort of came and went.
But it's interesting you bring that up because there must be people out there that know this movie has some greatness because when AFI did their top 100 heroes, Bernie the Plant was nominated.
Is that right?
So at least among film people, this has made.
Well, it is called Hero, so it probably caught their attention.
Yeah, but
from that,
you'd hope.
Hey, why not?
But
plus Hoffman, so
yeah,
I gotta say, I honestly can't find too much fault with this film. I give it an A.
Oh, solid A.
Yeah. Justin? First time for you.
First time round for me, yes. Well, here's the thing for this one, gentlemen. Mm-hmm. I'm always sort of at war with myself in terms of when comedy dramas have a huge disbalance between them. And this one is very much... This is basically a drama that thinks it's a comedy. And... because of that, the dramatic scenes are actually pretty good, but they're buried under so many weird and awkward attempts at humor that sometimes it doesn't always resonate, and I think it really pulls it down dramatically at times. Hoffman does a very good job at playing an unlikable character, and for I want to say the first half an hour, I'm starting to think why should we possibly like this guy?
That's the point.
I know it is. I'm getting to that joke. Come on, but
I hope so.
But I think, the more they start entering into that, another big thing, the movie runs on probably 10, 15 minutes too long. The more you can see that, and I think if they had just committed to the fact that it was a drama instead of, or a satire at best, instead of this quirky comedy on the side, I think it would have made a world of difference.
So you didn't like the satire at all?
No. The satire works. The weird attempts at quips and one-liners are messy at best.
See, you say that, but I mean, I find a lot of those funny because I think it speaks a lot to his character. He's just so despicable. You mean when the plane crashes and he's like, "Wait a second"?
No.
I think that's funny.
No, for example, the opening, the crash hits and it's this huge thing, and it looks like a huge blockbuster moment,
dramatic moment,
and he looks over and is like, "You got a problem, pal?" I'm like,
"That's funny."
That's not funny. That's just awkward and rude.
I think it speaks to his character.
It does speak to his character, but it's this is supposed to be a punchline, and it's completely ineffective.
Worked for me.
Worked on Joe.
But, I don't know. And there's a whole mess of those as it goes along, and leading all the way into the ending where it starts out kind of like they're trying to play suicide as a punchline, and I'm just kind of disturbed, to be frank.
That's happened plenty of times, though.
They do.
Well, look, to be fair, though, Justin, in that scene, you're right. It is comedic. But they followed up with, wow, this person killed himself, and there's this whole Gina Davis scene, maybe if we keep digging at it, what is journalism? So, I mean, it's not like they ignore it and say, haha, it's funny without repercussions.
No.
Suicide can be funny. People use that in movies all the time. And you can't say that's never worked.
That's better off dead. But anyways, my point being, it's just strange because it's okay, we've tried to enter into this whole, like, what makes a hero? Can a bad person do some good and get credit for it, or deserve to get credit for it?
Yeah.
Can a good person take credit for something he never did and take the blame for it? I think that's an interesting angle, but the fact that they're, like, treating into slapstick humor at the end, at the climactic moment, they do circle around and give it a little bit of weight, but it takes so long to get there. It's so incredibly long-winded.
I don't know. I kind of liked a little more time with the movie. I didn't think it was too long. I think, if anything, it's too short.
I thought it was an
I
appropriate
can't agree.
length. I don't think
like
it was
it's
too
not-
short,
like-
but I didn't find it too long either.
I mean, not, like, significantly long. We're not talking like I would take out an entire subplot here, but it's definitely got a couple minutes that should be excised, for lack of a better word, to keep things moving.
All right.
But for me, it's got its moments. I like what it's trying to say. It's just I think it really could have used a little more time to polish it up and make it something better. Mm-hmm. I leave here with a B.
All right.
I really think you're missing the mark, though, on the comedy drama angle. I think it was pretty 50-50, and I
don't agree.
I know. I mean, I think the movie is not a drama masquerading as a comedy. I think it toes that line perfectly between the two. My probably A plus 2A is Chevy Chase.
Really?
I think Chevy Chase is a little too broad in his character because they're going for that whole 30s newspaper, man thing.
See, I think he has some funny lines, though, because he's Chevy Chase.
He has some okay lines, but to me, he's the worst part of the movie.
Well, he's a pretty minor part.
Yeah.
He is, and that's why it doesn't detract significantly, but...
Okay.
You'd
Yeah.
probably lift him from it and you wouldn't miss anything.
I mean, she needs a boss, obviously. She needs a reason, but I don't know that he has to, do a J. Jonah Jameson impression.
No.
It's kind of what it was.
It is, and
It's true.
That's why that part didn't quite work for me. But I think in terms of the comedy drama split, I think it's pretty even.
I always thought it was pretty balanced. I mean, I think there are some parts that maybe they could have fleshed out the comedy or the drama, but I don't think that for me, the drama worked well when it did, and the comedy worked well when it did, for the most part.
Well, here's the thing: if you're gonna try and have that balance, have the humor hold some weight. Instead they're trying to be sort of subtle with it until, like I said, at the end where we try to incorporate really weird slapstick, which is just
What's the weird
unpleasant.
slapstick?
Oh, look, they're on a ledge. Oh, wait, one of them is slipping. Oh, wait, what? Let's make this a whole little suspenseful thing, which has absolutely no business being there. But
This is the thing, though. They kind of combined both aspects, because there was the perception of the idea of what's going on is so much more incredible in everybody's minds. Like, yes, there's somebody's life on the line, and there is some drama, but they're blowing it up with their huge song for the theme of the newscasting, like, oh, and you got the camera guy just going insane about how awesome it is. I think so.
And I mean, you're welcome to hold that opinion, Joe, but I mean, honestly, the humor is just all over the place, and nothing is really all that funny. It's just...
Well...
It's like, it's tee-hee at best instead of, like, actual, like, solid one-liners. It's...
All right.
I feel like every single attempt at humor is just trying entirely too hard.
I'll tell you this. As we all know, comedy is incredibly subjective.
It is.
So I'm going to say that, obviously, you're saying this, it's not true, it's just what you find funny. For me, some things worked really well. Obviously. I mean, I agree with you. There are a lot of lines that are just kind of ha-ha. But there are some lines that really get me laughing really hard several times. At the core, the reason I like Hero is because of the story, the characters, and the ideas that it's presenting, I think is rather powerful and something universal. Mm-hmm. And I think it does that well.
All right, well, my pick was the Brady Bunch movie. I didn't have a whole lot, really, to choose from. Bridesmaids, we had considered.
Which still bugs me that you haven't brought it, because there's just, it keeps...
Well, I know, I do like Bridesmaids, but...
Holding out on
We'll find an excuse.
I don't know. I wanted to run this one. I had thought of some of the jokes, as Justin had mentioned it, as a possibility, and I thought, yeah, that would be a good one to show. So, Brady Bunch Movie is a 90s film that sets the Brady family from, obviously, the TV show from the 60s and 70s in the 90s world. Shelley Long plays Carol, Gary Cole plays Mike, and Christine Taylor plays Marcia. And that's what I like the best about this film, is that rather than going for full-blown satire like they do in, I don't know, I mean, like 21 Jump Street, let's say.
Yeah.
And obviously they're not doing the Bradys in the 90s being in the 90s and getting into the 90s technology and whatever, like, I don't know, Starsky and Hutch, let's say.
That was weird.
Well,
That was awkward.
but this movie turns the idea of the satire sort of on its head by giving them their entire 70s personas and sticking them in the grunge era of the 90s. The plot itself is fairly threadbare, as episodes of the TV show would be. But the other thing with that is they take some of the most famous bits from the show. Marcia, getting the football in the nose, trying to get Davy Jones to come play the dance, having 2 dates, Jan being jealous, all that kind of stuff. Greg trying to be a rock star. It's all sort of predicated on the Bradys about to lose their home, and they're the only ones on the block who don't want to sell to Mr. Detweiler, played by Michael McKean of Spinal Tap. And I just think, for fans of the show, it is just one of the most brilliant satires, right up there with like an airplane, a Naked Gun. I mean, what they did with the very basic concept of the Brady Bunch is brilliant, and I think there's a lot of really funny moments, funny lines, things you don't expect. And obviously it gets a little bit racy because it is in the 90s, so there's like a lesbian subplot and some other things.
Well, that might have been racy back then. Now it's just the way things are.
Well, true, but I mean, for the Brady Bunch, obviously you'd never have that on the show.
No.
But you get your cameos as well from a few of the original members. I just think it's a brilliant movie. I give it an A. Joe?
Well, it's certainly better with the Brady Bunch than what the X-Files did with them.
True.
I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I've heard.
It's horrible. But I was very surprised because though I have seen some episodes of the Brady Bunch, it's been a long time, and I can never really say that I was like a diehard fan. I just didn't really watch them that much.
Yeah.
I was more of like a Gilligan.
I grew up on it.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
So, but you see, for the longest time, I remember seeing this movie like advertised when it came out when I was a kid, and I was like, "Oh, a Brady Bunch movie. I'm sure that's kind of a cool thing." But I thought it was just like a Brady Bunch movie taking place in the 70s.
Right.
So I didn't get the whole satire thing. So when I saw this, I was completely surprised by that, and I think that the self-awareness really helps with that. And I think it would probably mean more for me if I remembered a lot of the Brady Bunch stuff, but it didn't matter because I thought the comedy was just pretty much constantly great. So I was just having a great time with the whole thing and all the exaggerations. It was incredibly entertaining. I really liked it. The only joke that didn't work for me was like one minor thing, which wasn't like bad, but it just wasn't as great as everything else. It's like when they keep cutting back to the dad's work and he's working on models for different things. It's like, that's kind of funny, but it wasn't like as great as everything else.
Okay, that's fair.
And I mean, I think the fact that it's in the 90s really works. The whole The Grudge stuff and just the clashing of the ideas works really well. This movie was surprisingly smart and funny. I loved it. I gave it an A.
All right. Justin?
Well, I mean, it's certainly a gimmick, but man, is it an effective gimmick? This is basically what I was kind of hoping last year's Vacation would have been. Kind of a self-parody, but still keeping the spirit of it alive and well. Like, if you're going to poke fun at it, do it in a loving way. And I think this finds that really nice way of saying, like, yeah, the show had some goofy moments, but we still kind of love it. And I think it's awesome what they managed to pull off with that. There's some great jokes. The callbacks are amazing. The storyline is basically Brady Bunch's greatest hits, but
Peanuts.
I feel like you'd I feel like you'd probably end up getting flack if you didn't do that. So everything but Evil Tiki. So go for it.
Which of course shows up in the sequel. So,
but
Justin's favorite part.
Yeah, he loves the Hawaii episode.
Like, really?
It's like the best bad episode ever. If you find it, you need to watch it.
Right.
But no, honestly, if it was for a more cohesive story, I think it would have got a higher grade. But for me, it's a very solid A-.
Just the little bits that they picked up from the show, like when the dad is on the phone, he did that all the time on the show where he, I see, yeah, and it's like, And they parodied that a couple times. The life lessons to the children.
Oh, that was great.
I can't say too much else about it. Really, I think we've covered it mostly. But I just the songs and.
I loved how he just kept trying to push his rock when it was just not, not out of it.
He was pushing his 70s soft pop
to
the grunge era.
Scene. It's just not working at all.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys liked it.
Yeah, I was surprised by how much I liked it.
I think it really is one of the smartest parodies in film that
Easily.
that really has ever been.
It needs to be talked about more. Another one.
I'm kind of shocked it's kind of fallen by the wayside.
It really has. It's so funny.
Well, I think, it did pretty well when it was out. I guess well enough for the sequel and then a straight-to-DVD third one, which I didn't see.
No Lumbergh?
No, I think Lumbergh and Shelley Long were both still in it. I think the kids were all different. I don't think Christine Taylor came back by that point. But it is one of those that I think, Joe, maybe a lot of people like yourself thought, well, I'm not really going to watch that. If I want to see the Brady Bunch, I'll just watch the show. Without really realizing that it's quite the clever satire.
Yeah, somehow that completely eluded me. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think maybe did a lot of other people, because I think that would automatically interest people more if they knew it was a satire.
Yeah. All right, well, Joe, let's have you close with our listener's choice. At this point, I am not even sure who brought that to us. It's been a few months.
That would have been the George.
Okay, the George gave us Braveheart, so let's hear about it.
Yes, because he's a fan of all those Mel Gibson films, like
What Women Want
and Braveheart.
That great pairing.
I don't know. I think he might have messing us with one of those, but Braveheart is a '95 historical drama war epic that was written and directed and starring Mel Gibson. And it basically portrays the story of William Wallace, who's this legendary 13th Scottish warrior who leads the first major war of independence of Scotland against Britain, which takes many liberties, but gets the essence of the legend right, I guess. And it's primarily going up against the villainous Edward I, who I believe was pagan in the film, which is a huge religious clash, as opposed to all the Christianity that's bashing around the time. Mm. And there's pretty much a wide cast of people. It was nominated for many awards, as you guys might know, and it won 5: Best Picture, Best Director, Cinematography, Makeup, and Editing of Sound. So
I can see it.
This is a pretty prestigious movie. Obviously, has a big reputation.
Absolutely.
And what does Joe think about it? I mean, well,
Gleason. So
yes, long before I even knew who he was.
Yeah, early Brendan Gleeson.
When he throws the rock at Mel Gibson, just a little bit closer. No, I'm just kidding. No, all that aside, though, I mean, it's a war movie. It's an epic. It's a historical movie. Obviously, I'm gonna have some interest, but I think it's fantastic. I mean, I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I think Braveheart's a great film. Gibson's in true form as a director, as an actor. It's definitely long in the tooth, so it's an investment. But visually, it looks great. The battle sequences are awesome. I mean, this is my favorite period of history, and they really do a good job of capturing a lot of that combat. The King Edward is this horrible person, plays it really well. I think that I will say there's a minor thing about it when, spoilers, William gets betrayed at a certain point in the movie and just kind of goes on a one-man war of vengeance, where the more historical aspect kind of bleeds into the legendary things, which is kind of, I guess, my least favorite part of the movie, because I just like the war stuff. So when he becomes the Scottish Batman, I'm like, it's okay. I still think it's very good, don't get me wrong, but I'm like, I kind of wish they had just stuck more to the main combat stuff. But that's a very minor nitpick. It's Braveheart.
It is.
It's an A+, so I'm curious to what you guys think about it.
Okay.
Well, you can say what you want about Mel Gibson as a person.
Mm-hmm. He knows that camera.
But face facts, ladies and gentlemen. The guy can direct, and he can direct amazingly.
Yeah.
And Braveheart is literally the textbook that proves that. I mean...
Gettysburg. Dan's favorite epic war movie.
No, I don't care for Gettysburg.
5 hours long or whatever it is. Go ahead.
Is it a long movie? Yes, but I think he finds one of those rare exceptions of doing a 3-hour movie and pacing it really, really well. And I can honestly say, when I watched it, I never got bored for an instance. Were there moments that were definitely Hollywoodized?
Yeah.
Yes, but they were done in a way that were entertaining enough that I didn't really care that much. I mean, it's well acted, it's well shot. I'm actually right with you, Joe. It's an A+.
Well, as you guys might imagine, I'm a bit lower on the scale for this. do agree that Gibson's directing is amazing.
Well, yeah.
His acting in this, I didn't care for.
Didn't like it? Didn't like when I talked about the Scottish
didn't like
rain?
the accent.
Consistent.
For the most part, yes. For the most part, yes, it's consistent. It's way too long, obviously.
Okay.
I thought the battles were good, but they got repetitive.
They had arrows in one.
Yeah, they did. That was exciting.
With the arrows.
That was very exciting.
What about when they brought in the
I
cavalry?
liked when he painted his face. I liked when he brought in
Did you like the part
cavalry.
where his friends left? Like half the army left?
No. Didn't care for that. No, I mean, it's good.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's not my kind of thing to begin with.
True.
But there's definitely some flaws. I can't give it an A+ or anything close. It's a B+ for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'll have to talk you up from that, Dan. Why is it
I
a
don't
B+?
know about that.
Come on, Dan.
It's-
B+ for Braveheart?
It's way too long. I didn't think Gibson was that good in it. He was much better behind the camera, I thought, than in front of it.
I don't know. I always thought his
Well, he was
performance
definitely wearing a
pretty
lot of hats, but I think
He is. I think where he's shown is the directing for the film. I can see why he won for that.
good. Did you like the story?
The story was okay. Yeah.
Did you like the music?
Yeah, the score was really good, and what did it win? Sound editing or whatever?
Yeah.
I thought that was good.
I mean, you can't-
Actually, the score reminded me a little bit of James Horner in Titanic. I don't know if Horner did the music for this or not, but
You know, I think it... I actually heard about this recently. I can't tell you, but...
I was going to say one.
I wonder
one
if it
DVD
says. We have it right here.
Because I know Horner was big around this time.
Uh-huh. James Horner, there it is.
There you go.
Big.
So, yes, I loved the music.
All right.
It did remind me of Titanic.
You have to tell me, though, the scope or the production value of this movie. You got to admit, the costumes are great.
Production value
yeah.
is great.
It
The
looks great.
costumes are great.
Sets, yeah.
Didn't you feel like you were in Scotland? Come on.
I
1200?
guess.
Come on, man.
My TV's not that big.
Man.
Maybe if I saw it in a theater.
Yeah,
You know?
this is definitely one of those. That
I could feel
should
like
be
I was
experienced
there.
theatrically, but
No, I
was
feel
5 years
like
old, so.
there is some length. I mean, much like Justin, I didn't get bored with it, but I feel like you have to really like go in with that investment. I mean, otherwise it might seem too long for you.
That's true.
Well, I knew it was 3 hours going into it, but it needed to be trimmed a little bit. I mean,
Where would you have trimmed it?
well, you didn't need the sex scene. We get it. You're Mel Gibson and you're a director, so you want to have sex with a hot woman. We didn't need it.
I don't think the sex scene was particularly long, or
It wasn't necessarily long, but it wasn't necessary.
but they want to show their romance, their love, their physicality.
I understand.
It's an epic war movie. Scotland, man. What do you-
Unnecessary.
Don't get to see some skin, man.
No, I don't
Scotsmen
think so.
need love too, but
It's true.
I have a question, though, because
Please.
going into this movie, there were, a couple things that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I knew about the yelling at the end.
True.
I knew about the blue face.
naturally.
Pretty classic.
I knew about the scene with their butts.
Big,
Always.
big scene.
And the other thing I knew was that it is like the classic, completely historically inaccurate film.
Oh yeah.
So how do you guys feel about that? Obviously, it doesn't bother you with the A+s, but
Well, this is the thing.
here's what I picked out.
Okay.
Now, I know nothing about history
Yeah.
of this era.
Yeah.
But a couple things I do know about is
Mm-hmm.
this was before the F word supposedly existed.
True.
And they're throwing
Probably.
it around a couple of times.
True.
Oh yeah.
And I agree the costumes were good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not positive that they're era appropriate. Some of them.
Some of them.
So, but other than that, I don't know about the actual history
Well,
of it.
okay, with the events, you're right. For typically speaking, you want to be pretty historically accurate. But number one, Hollywoodization, there's always something wrong. So
True.
always.
But I mean, this film is known for its inaccuracy.
It is. But this is the thing. William Wallace, it's one of those things where this was like,
Is it like urban legend?
it's 1250 AD. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the British weren't keeping too many records about their Scottish enemies they hated that they considered like lower life forms.
Okay.
True enough.
So, you know, the idea of William Wallace, yes, he was actually, if I remember correctly, he actually was like a form of nobility who led the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but obviously the scale of the battles and a lot of the stuff that happens is hearsay, and they kind of imply in the movie that it's a legend. So it's the idea of William Wallace versus
Okay.
the event. That's why it doesn't bother me.
All right. That's fair.
It's a good point to bring up, though.
I mean, the best advice I ever got from one of my history professors was every historical drama is going to have some degree of BS. It's a matter of how do they convey it that you can overlook it.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of great war movies, historical dramas that have absolutely no basis in accuracy whatsoever, and they're great movies. Braveheart's one of them. The Patriot is another one.
I love that movie too.
Patriot, I would argue, is even worse. But
Patriot, which is actually another one George Shea recommended.
Oh, okay.
So if we want to at some point for that one, but yeah, Patriot. When we watch it, that is so wrong. They even get his name wrong.
Really?
But
that's bad.
It's bad, and it's like such propaganda. But I love that movie though. It's pretty.
It's
fun.
a very fun movie.
It's a very fun movie to watch.
Okay.
Like, you get to see Gibson kill
and early Heath Ledger. So I mean, what's not to love?
And Ledger, so much in the same vein as Braveheart, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
So yeah, we liked it.
I know.
And so did you.
Well, I'm
Hey.
sticking with my B+.
very
You're not going to talk me up, though,
Oh, man.
on that one.
No love.
All right, well, next month we have Jodie Foster month. This is in honor of her directing Money Monster, which will be out shortly. So we've all picked a movie that she either has acted in or directed, or in some cases both, maybe.
Produced them.
And
A little too
I think that's a little too loose. Let's just stick with acting and directing.
Yes.
But as listeners, if you guys do have a suggestion for us for Jodie Foster month, we would love to have that. But otherwise, that's going to do it for this monthly old classic show. And we'll have another regular show up, of course, very shortly. And you can also enjoy our Star Trek episodes, of course. So that's going to do it. And we'll see you back here next time.